The evening air was filled with the fragrance of fresh grass and the sweet aroma of blooming roses. Stephen Westbrook, a 35-year-old software engineer in the quiet community of Riverbend, got out of his car and fixed his gaze on his house. The 2-story modern building with its wide windows and neatly trimmed lawn was more than just a place to live. It was a symbol of his upcoming wedding to his fiancée, Samantha Sullivan, which was just 2 weeks away. The house represented their shared dreams and the love that bound them together. Taking a deep breath, Stephen tried to dispel the stress of a hard day's work. He had been working long hours in the office, quietly preparing for the honeymoon in Santorini, a surprise he had been planning for months. As he walked down the driveway, a slight movement in the living room window caught his attention. His heart quickened at the thought that Samantha might be eagerly waiting for him. However, when he opened the door, the sight that greeted him stopped him in his tracks. Samantha stood in the doorway, her dark hair elegantly swept to one side, wearing a sleek black cocktail dress with sheer stockings and high heels. A string of pearls glowed softly in the nightlight. She looked stunning, but something was undeniably missing. Her expression was full of nervousness and uncertainty, betraying the calmness of her appearance. "Wow," Stephen said, his voice a mixture of admiration and confusion. "You look so beautiful. Have I forgotten something special?" Her lips curved into a forced smile as she gripped the doorframe. "No, Stephen," she replied, her voice trembling. "You haven't forgotten anything. We need to talk." A chill ran through Stephen's stomach. The last time he had heard those words was after a fight with his best friend, and now they sounded heavier and more ominous. He noticed a travel bag by the door and asked, "Are you going somewhere?" Samantha hesitated, her shoulders stiffening. "I'm going away for a week." Stephen frowned, confused. The wedding was in 2 weeks. What could be so urgent now? She crossed her arms as if shielding herself. "I've been feeling overwhelmed," she admitted. "Between the wedding and everything else, I need space to sort things out." His confusion gave way to suspicion. "Space?" he repeated, his tone sharp. "You decided this without talking to me? Where are you going?" "In the city center," she answered quickly, avoiding his gaze. "Alone?" Stephen's voice lowered, his apprehension growing. Her hesitation was brief but fatal. "No," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I'll be with a friend." Stephen felt the air leave his lungs. His mind raced, struggling to make sense of her words. "This friend," he asked urgently, "wouldn't happen to be a man, would he?" Samantha's face flushed as her gaze dropped to the floor. "It's not what you think," she stammered. "He's just a friend." Stephen clenched his fists, frustration surging. "You're spending the weekend with another man, 2 weeks before our wedding, and you expect me to believe it's innocent? Who is he?" Her silence was deafening. Stephen took a step closer. "Tell me his name, Samantha. Don't make me ask again." She finally whispered, "I've been talking to someone." Her voice choked with emotion, her eyes brimming with tears. "Yes," she admitted when he pressed further. Stephen's jaw tightened as he fought to contain his emotions. "This person, is he a therapist? A counselor? A priest? Who is he?" His voice dripped with sarcasm. "He's the good listener," she muttered weakly. Stephen threw his hands up in exasperation. "A good listener? You're putting everything we have at risk because some guy decided to listen to you." "I haven't given up anything," Samantha protested, her voice cracking. "I just need to do this. For me, for us." Stephen let out a bitter laugh. His voice was hollow and weak. "For us? Sneaking into another man's hotel room is supposed to help us." Tears spilled down her face, smudging her makeup. "I don't expect you to understand," she sobbed. Stephen's anger melted into deep sadness. Quietly, he asked, "How long?" Her voice was small. "How long what?" "How long this has been going on," he clarified, his voice unsteady. Her lips quivered as she whispered, "A few months. But it's not what you think. We just chat." Stephen's voice turned cold. "Do you really think I'll believe that?" "I swear, Stephen," she pleaded. "We never went any further." "Not yet," he retorted bitterly. "But that's why you packed your bags, isn't it?" Her silence was the only answer he needed. Running a hand through his hair, Stephen turned away, trying to process the world crumbling around him. When he faced her again, his voice was filled with pain. "Samantha, do you love me? Or is this all just a game?" Tears streamed down her face as she choked out, "I love you, Stephen. You're everything I've ever wanted." But his voice was strained. Her shoulders trembled. "But that's why I'm doing this. I need to experience it one last time before we get married." Stephen stared at her in shock. "What are you talking about?" "I'll only be with you," she admitted. "Even though I love you, I can't shake the idea of what I might be missing. I just need to know what it's like to be with someone else before I commit to forever." Stephen took a deep breath. His anger rekindled. "So you're willing to throw away forever for a fleeting curiosity?" Samantha flinched at his words. "This should be easy then," he said, his voice steady and uncompromising. "If you walk out of this house with that bag, there will be nothing between us. No wedding, no future, nothing. Do you understand?" Samantha stood motionless, her tears dripping onto the floor. "Stephen, please don't do this," she whispered, her voice breaking. He shook his head, his decision final. No more lies. No more excuses. Her gaze flickered between him and the door, the weight of her choice suffocating. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, clutching the bag to her chest, she whispered, "I'm sorry, Stephen." Stephen watched her back as she walked away, his heart breaking into two. The click of the door closing behind her resounded like a hammer blow, announcing the end of their shared dream. He stood in the empty hallway, an avalanche of emotions hitting him all at once. Endless questions flashed through his mind. What had gone wrong? Could he have changed the outcome? Now, amidst the ruins of their love, he knew what he was up against and what his next move should be. That night, he sat alone in the dim living room, drinking whiskey. The liquid burned down his throat, mirroring the anger and pain inside him. The thought of betrayal struck like a storm. Even though he didn't know the man's name, he vowed to uncover the truth. Samantha's actions demanded answers, and he wasn't going to let the matter rest. The next morning, he called an old friend from university, Alex, who had since become a private investigator. "Alex, it's Stephen," he began, his voice stiff and nervous. "I need your help. Samantha has another man. I need to know everything about him. No stone unturned." "I'll look into it," Alex replied. "Give me a few days." After the call ended, Stephen's eyes fell on the coffee table, and a complex mix of sadness and determination washed over him. Samantha had broken his trust, but he would not let her betrayal go unanswered. 2 days later, Alex called back. "His name is Victor Tomlinson," Alex reported. "He's a marketing consultant for a company. Divorced. No kids. They meet regularly for dinner and drinks. Last night, they checked into a hotel downtown." Stephen's chest tightened. "Do you have proof?" "Photos and receipts," Alex confirmed. "I'll send them to you right away." Stephen opened the email, his hands trembling as he clicked on the pictures. Each one was a dagger to his heart. Samantha and Victor laughing over dinner, their hands clasped as they walked into the hotel. The time-stamped receipts confirmed everything. His anger burned like wildfire. He had given her the chance to confess, but she had chosen deception. She would pay for that choice. Over the next few days, Stephen carefully formulated a plan. The sting of betrayal was fresh, and he refused to let the pain consume him. Samantha underestimated him if she thought she could betray him without consequence. The first step was to protect himself. He arranged a meeting with C.L. Hartman, a shrewd lawyer. Hartman listened carefully as Stephen explained the situation, her brow furrowing with concern. He handed her a list of assets. "I want to make sure everything is secure, the house, the accounts, the car, everything." She nodded confidently. "Since you weren't married, she has no legal claim. But we'll make sure nothing complicated happens. Leave it to me." For the first time in days, Stephen felt a glimmer of relief. Samantha might have broken his heart, but she wasn't taking anything with her. That night, Alex sent another email containing a detailed report on Victor, his home address, work history, even the car he drove. One detail stood out. Victor was not just a colleague. He was Samantha's boss. Can you look into this a little more? Stephen asked, What exactly are you looking for? Alex asked, Anything suspicious. Financial misconduct, criminal records, skeletons in his closet. You name it. Alex chuckled. I'll see what I can find. The next day, Stephen implemented the first phase of his plan. Using a fake email account, he attached the incriminating photos and wrote a carefully crafted email. It was sent to Samantha's family, close friends, and colleagues. But he didn't stop there. He forwarded the photos to a well-known gossip blog that specialized in workplace scandals. Within hours, the story was published under the headline, Marketing Executive Has Affair with Engaged Employee. The effect was immediate. Samantha's phone was flooded with calls and texts. Friends and family bombarded her with questions and condemnation. Her mother left an angry and disappointed voicemail. Stephen watched from afar as her carefully constructed life began to crumble. But he wasn't finished yet. Later that week, Alex called triumphantly. You're going to love this, he said. Victor has been embezzling company funds. Not obvious at first, but over time, the amounts are significant. Stephen's mouth curled into a sneer. Perfect. He forwarded the evidence to the company's HR and legal teams. It didn't take long for them to act. By the weekend, Victor was escorted out of the office. His career was in ruins. On Saturday, Samantha appeared at Stephen's doorstep, her once glossy appearance replaced by despair. She knocked repeatedly until he finally opened the door. His expression was blank. What do you want? He asked coldly. She stammered through her tears. Stephen, I made a mistake, an irreparable mistake, but my love for you has never wavered. Stephen let out a sharp, humorless laugh. When you slipped into Victor's hotel room, what did you whisper to him? She went pale, as if struck by his words. It wasn't like that. Don't lie to me, he cut her off, his voice rising with raw anger. I gave you so many chances to tell the truth, but you chose deceit. You destroyed everything we had. His tone lowered, his words hoarse with emotion. Samantha fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. But now I know it's you. It's always been you. She raised her tear-stained face, desperation written all over it. Please, let me make amends. Give me another chance. Stephen's gaze was cold, his emotions in turmoil. Pain and anger mingled inside him. Don't you understand yet? He said, his voice void of warmth. This isn't about a second chance. It's about responsibility. You didn't just hurt me. You humiliated me. And now you're finally facing the consequences. Samantha sobbed harder. I'll do anything, Stephen. Anything. He bent down, his voice low but venomous. You've done enough. Now get lost. He motioned for her to leave. We're finished. A few days later, Stephen sent evidence of Samantha's affair to the CEO of her company. Though she wasn't involved in Victor's embezzlement, their scandalous relationship was enough to ruin her reputation. She was swiftly dismissed. Through a mutual friend, Stephen learned that she had moved back in with her parents, struggling to manage her own expenses. Victor's downfall was even faster. A full investigation into his finances was launched, ensuring his professional destruction. As months passed, Stephen rebuilt his life. He sold the engagement ring he had once given Samantha and donated the money to a nonprofit organization. The house they had shared was put up for sale. He moved to a new place, determined to start fresh. One quiet afternoon, he sat on the balcony of his new apartment, sipping coffee, when his phone vibrated. A message from Alex. Victor. Stephen exhaled slowly, a faint smile curling at the corner of his mouth. It had been a long time since he felt this way. Peaceful, strong. Samantha's betrayal had nearly broken him, but he had endured, and he vowed never to let anyone take advantage of his trust again. The wounds would take time to heal, but one thing was certain. He had weathered the storm and emerged stronger.